Imagine a moment so devastating, it changed the course of history forever. This is the story of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In the final stage of the Second World War, a new weapon was introduced that held an unprecedented destructive power, the likes of which the world had never seen before. This was not just another bomb, it was the atomic bomb, a weapon that harnessed the very building blocks of the universe, the atom, to unleash a devastating explosive force. Prior to the bombings, the world was embroiled in a conflict of global proportions. The war had raged on for 6 long years, claiming countless lives and causing untold suffering. The world was weary of war, desperate for an end to the violence. It was in this context that the atomic bomb came into play. In the United States, a secret project, now known as the Manhattan Project, had been underway since 1942. Its aim? To develop a weapon that could potentially end the war. The atomic bomb was the result of this project, a testament to the terrifying power of human ingenuity. The atomic bomb worked by initiating a nuclear chain reaction, causing atoms to split and release an immense amount of energy. The result was an explosion of unparalleled magnitude, capable of leveling entire cities in an instant. This was not just a weapon of war, but a force of nature, a manifestation of the raw, untamed power of the atom. The decision to use such a weapon was not taken lightly. It was a decision made in the context of a world at war, a world desperate for peace. But at what cost? The atomic bomb offered a swift end to the conflict, but it also promised unimaginable destruction. This was the gravity of the atomic bomb. It was not just a weapon, but a symbol of a new era, an era where humanity held the power to destroy itself. It was a stark reminder of the potential consequences of our technological advances. And thus, the decision was made, a decision that would forever change the world. In the midst of World War II, the United States made a choice to unleash the destructive power of the atomic bomb. The year was 1945, and President Harry S. Truman stood at a crossroads. The war had raged on for 6 long years, and the end seemed nowhere in sight. The development of the atomic bomb, a project known as the Manhattan Project, had been a closely guarded secret. At its helm were some of the world's brightest minds, tasked with creating a weapon of unimaginable power. The question now was whether to use it, and if so, how and where. The decision-making process was anything but straightforward. President Truman found himself in a dilemma, a choice between the devil and the deep blue sea. On one hand, an invasion of Japan would likely result in a high number of casualties on both sides, prolonging the war and increasing the suffering. On the other hand, the use of the atomic bomb would undoubtedly lead to massive destruction and loss of life. In deliberation with his advisors, the arguments for and against the use of the bomb were weighed heavily. The military was in favor of the bombing, arguing that it would hasten the end of the war and save lives in the long run. Others, however, voiced their concerns about the ethical implications and the potential for a nuclear arms race in the future. Ultimately, Truman made the decision to drop the bomb, a decision that he believed would save American lives and bring a swift end to the war. The targets were chosen: Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 2 cities of significant military importance to Japan. With the decision made, the stage was set for a grim chapter of history. On August 6th and 9th, 1945, the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were changed forever. The dawn of August 6, 1945, began like any other day for the people of Hiroshima. But at precisely 15 minutes past 8 in the morning, the routine was shattered as the world's first deployed atomic bomb, codenamed Little Boy, was dropped over the city by the American B-29 bomber, the Enola Gay. The bomb exploded approximately 600 meters above the city, unleashing a force equivalent to about 15,000 tons of TNT. The result was apocalyptic. An intense flash of light followed by a wave of heat swept across the city. Buildings were flattened, trees were uprooted, and people were vaporized where they stood. The city, once bustling with life, was reduced to a smoldering wasteland in mere seconds. 3 days later, the citizens of Nagasaki would face a similar fate. On August 9th, another B-29 bomber, Boxcar, dropped the second atomic bomb, Fat Man, over the city. This bomb was even more powerful than its predecessor, with an equivalent force of 21,000 tons of TNT. Just like Hiroshima, Nagasaki was devastated. The city was transformed into a scene of utter destruction and chaos. The 2 bombings marked a turning point in human history. The sheer destructive power of these weapons of mass destruction was laid bare for the world to see. The bombings claimed the lives of an estimated 130,000 people, but the death toll would continue to rise due to radiation sickness and injuries. The world had entered the atomic age, an era where mankind now had the power to destroy entire cities in the blink of an eye. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki served as a grim reminder of this newfound power. These events cast a long shadow over the 20th century and beyond, shaping the global political landscape and forever changing the way warfare is conducted. In a flash of light and heat, two cities were reduced to rubble. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki marked the end of World War II, but for the survivors, it was just the beginning of their ordeal. As the dust settled and the fires receded, the true scale of the devastation became apparent. Buildings were reduced to rubble, and once bustling city streets were now eerily silent, save for the cries of the injured and the wailing sirens of emergency vehicles. Rescue efforts were immediate, with local authorities, the military, and civilians alike digging through the wreckage in search of survivors. But the task was monumental. Thousands were trapped under collapsed buildings, and many more were wandering the streets, dazed and injured. Among the survivors were those who had come to be known as the hibakusha, a Japanese term translating to explosion-affected people. These were the individuals who had been within a certain radius of the bomb's hypocenter and had survived. Their experiences were harrowing. Many had witnessed the flash of the bomb, the mushroom cloud, and the ensuing firestorm. They had seen friends, family, and neighbors perish in an instant, and their cities reduced to rubble. But surviving the initial blast was only the first challenge they faced. In the days and weeks following the bombings, the hibakusha began to suffer from a range of mysterious and debilitating illnesses. These were the effects of radiation sickness, a condition that was, at the time, little understood. Symptoms included nausea, fatigue, loss of appetite, and severe burns. But the most terrifying aspect was the uncertainty. No one knew who would fall ill next or how long the symptoms would last. And then, there were the long-term health effects. Over the years, many hibakusha developed cancers and other diseases as a result of their exposure to radiation. They lived their lives under the shadow of the bomb, knowing that at any moment they could be struck down by an illness linked to that fateful day. But despite their suffering, the hibakusha became a powerful symbol of resilience and hope. They shared their stories with the world, speaking out about the horrors of nuclear war and advocating for peace. Their experiences became a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure and overcome even the most unimaginable hardships. Yet, the scars of Hiroshima and Nagasaki are not just physical, but psychological and societal as well. The bombings left a deeply ingrained trauma, a collective memory of destruction and loss that continues to shape Japanese society and the world's perception of nuclear weapons. The shadows of Hiroshima and Nagasaki continue to loom over the world, a stark reminder of the destructive potential of nuclear weapons. The aftermath of these bombings serves as a powerful testament to the cost of war, the resilience of the human spirit, and the urgent need for a world free from the threat of nuclear devastation. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki sparked a debate that continues to this day, a debate on the ethics of nuclear warfare. The scale of the devastation caused by the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 has been a catalyst for a myriad of ethical discussions. The primary focus of these discussions has been the justification for the bombings and the implications of using nuclear weapons in warfare. Let's delve into the first ethical debate: the justification for the bombings. Some argue that the bombings were necessary to bring a swift end to World War II, saving countless lives that would have been lost in a prolonged conflict. The logic here is that the bombings were a lesser evil compared to a full-scale invasion of Japan, which would have resulted in significantly more casualties on both sides. On the other hand, there are those who argue that the bombings were unnecessary and inhumane. They suggest that Japan was already on the verge of surrendering and that the bombings were an excessive show of force. The loss of innocent lives, they argue, cannot be justified by the potential for a quicker end to the war. The second ethical debate centers on the use of nuclear weapons in warfare. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki marked the first, and to this day, the only use of nuclear weapons in warfare. The sheer magnitude of destruction caused by these weapons has led many to question whether their use can ever be ethically justified. This debate often circles back to the principle of proportionality in warfare. which asserts that the force used in conflict should be proportionate to the threat posed. Critics argue that the destruction caused by nuclear weapons far exceeds this principle, making their use inherently unethical. However, proponents of nuclear deterrence argue that these weapons serve as a necessary evil to maintain peace and prevent large-scale wars. They assert that the threat of mutually assured destruction has kept major powers from engaging in direct conflicts since World War II. In addition to these debates, there are also discussions about the long-term health effects caused by the bombings. The radiation from the bombs led to cancer and other health issues for survivors, leading to questions about the responsibility of the U.S. in providing aid and reparations. The ethical questions raised by the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki remain unanswered, a testament to the complexity of the issue. These debates underscore the profound ethical dilemmas posed by nuclear warfare and the lasting impact of the bombings on our collective conscience. They serve as a sobering reminder of the catastrophic potential of nuclear weapons and the dire need for their regulation and control. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki have left an indelible mark on history, shaping our understanding of war, peace, and humanity. The immense devastation unleashed by these atomic bombs in August of 1945 has had profound, long-lasting implications that extend far beyond the immediate destruction. The legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki is multifaceted, encompassing the political, social, and cultural spheres. On the global front, the bombings were a pivotal turning point, triggering a wave of disarmament movements and sparking debates on the ethical use of nuclear weapons. This was the first and only time nuclear weapons were used in warfare, and the horrifying aftermath served as a grim reminder of their deadly potential. The bombings acted as a catalyst for the formation of the United Nations in October of the same year, with its charter pledging to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. Moreover, they sparked the inception of the Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1968, which sought to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and promote disarmament. However, the legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki is not just about global politics and disarmament. It's also about remembering the bombings and their victims. The cities themselves have become living memorials to the horrific events of August 1945. In Hiroshima, the Peace Memorial Park stands on the epicenter of the blast, a solemn tribute to the lives lost. The skeletal remains of the Hiroshima Prefectural Industrial Promotion Hall, now known as the A-bomb dome, is a haunting reminder of the destructive force unleashed that day. In Nagasaki, the Peace Park and the Atomic Bomb Museum serve a similar purpose, offering a space for reflection and remembrance. Each year, on the anniversaries of the bombings, thousands gather in these cities to commemorate the victims and to reaffirm their commitment to peace. These sites, along with the stories of the survivors, or hibakusha, serve as powerful reminders of the human cost of war. Their testimonials, filled with tales of survival and loss, have been instrumental in keeping the memory of the bombings alive. The legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki also lives on in the arts and popular culture, in films, literature, and music, which keep the memory of the bombings alive, fostering dialogue and promoting a culture of peace. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were a watershed moment in human history, a stark testament to the destructive potential of human ingenuity. Yet, out of the ashes of devastation, a powerful legacy of peace and disarmament has emerged. The memory of Hiroshima and Nagasaki serves as a sobering reminder of the horrors of war and the importance of peace. They stand as a testament to our past, a guide for our present, and a beacon for our future, illuminating the path toward a world free from the shadow of nuclear warfare.